Hello, everybody, and welcome to Web and Beyond Live for June 14th, 2021. I'm Ray Sidney Smith, president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services, which provides affordable managed WordPress and web hosting, domain name registration services, and other web-related services for small business. And so Web and Beyond Live is a weekly show about topical and timely small business digital marketing and related issues. Basically, all the things that I track from week to week that I think are important to you. And so if you're joining me here live, welcome. Feel free to ask questions in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. If you're watching the replay or listening to the podcast afterward, feel free to leave your questions in the comments or feel free to shoot me an email or message me on one of the social platforms. I'll be happy to try and help you one-to-one or in a future Web and Beyond Live. So today's agenda is really going to be around talking a little bit about cryptocurrency because it's in the news and it's going to affect small businesses. We're going to talk about Google and libel, some minor news stories, and then I'm going to close out with some news around WordPress and the future of image formats. And so we're going to have a fun show today. Let's get right into it with kind of the first story that I think is both fascinating and I think inevitability. I just think it's so important that we all get used to a reality around cryptocurrency, which is that it is coming. It is on the horizon, and we're going to see more and more of this news happening. That is, countries are starting to utilize Bitcoin as legal tender in their countries. El Salvador is the first country to have done this, and while that is notable, we'll note that right thereafter, Tanzania has now announced that they are going to consider crypto, basically Bitcoin, as one of their legal currencies. And we're going to just see more and more of this happen. We're going to see more countries embrace the decentralized financial world, and that is going to affect small business. So I know that I keep kind of beating that drum on the show, but I think it's really important for us all to take heart to the fact that this is coming. We need to be prepared, and the more we're prepared, the more likely our businesses are going to really benefit from the change. There are some pieces we need to figure out. Like there's a transaction cost in transferring Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency back to fiat currency, basically your country-based currency. And there's some slowness of the system. There's some technological challenges understanding how to transfer money. There's the issue that if you're in an exchange and somebody else is handling your wallet, there's issues around security there. If you're handling your own wallet, you lose a password, you're locked out of the wallet forever. There's some real issues here that we have to be mindful of, but it's coming, and I just wanted to kind of pique everybody's attention ever so often about this reality. And El Salvador and Tanzania taking this first step is just, I think, the very, very early points of them going forward. And now I think larger and larger countries, China has gone ahead and made their own digital currency. So it's still fiat currency, but it's a digital currency. We're going to see more and more of this happen, and this battle against decentralized currency in the crypto space. But we are going to see more and more countries also embrace Bitcoin, and that will further push it into the realm of small business. So just be mindful, keep paying attention, and I'm certainly going to be talking about it as we go forward. Just a quick note about Didi, which is a Chinese ride sharing app or ride hailing app. They have filed to go public. They launched their IPO in the United States. And so this is China's largest ride-hailing app to compete with Uber and Lyft and so on and so forth. And of course, they have gone out there and filed for IPO. I think this is really interesting for all of us because as we as small business owners are using ride-hailing applications, like ride-sharing applications, ride-hailing applications for fleet management and other kinds of things, these companies are going to be coming in and starting to offer services to small business owners. So start to probably see Didi making some inroads there to try and appeal to the business market. And so I'll be curious to see what Didi will be doing in this, especially as they go out there to challenge Uber and Lyft especially in the food delivery market and other consumer packaged goods delivery market, because that's certainly a place where Uber and Lyft have seen their profitability. They are not profitable when it comes to transiting livery, that is taking humans from one place to the other, but they have been able to be profitable in the food delivery space, as well as consumer packaged goods space, the CPG delivery space. So we'll see if that's just a pandemic bump or whether that's something that is truly sustainable for Uber and Lyft post-pandemic. And I think Didi is probably going to come in there into the market and try and get some of that action. And if they do, that also means that prices come down for small businesses, but that might also apply pressure for businesses who are trying to get delivery to their customers. Those prices may increase. So just be mindful that we're in that space where we're still determining those pieces. Next up is just a note. So this, I don't actually know how to say their name. I think it's Asomi, but maybe Asome, whatever. But this is a company that does a whole bunch of corporate services like, business filing registrations with your state corporation commission. They do accounting and bookkeeping and payroll and those kinds of things. They, of course, raised a $16 million Series A funding round, and they are going into this whole hog to be able to build up these services. The whole reason I even noted this story was because they're doing something that is a bit of a trend in the market. And the trend in the market is for these applications that are doing multiple things at once for businesses. They're grouping these products into suites that help businesses be more productive in a particular vertical. So in this particular case, Asomi is managing all of the corporate and regulatory issues, as well as accounting and finance. Other applications are going after productivity, like communications and CRM and managing sales and all of those kinds of productivity focused items on the side of the business with a little bit of sales and marketing. At some point, your business needs to make a decision about which of these apps makes most sense as your primary vehicle, primary product suite, and then tying those pieces together ultimately with other individualized product services. So for example, in W3 Consulting, we primarily use Google Workspace. That's our primary productivity suite. We also use the Freshworks suite of products for CRM and support database, knowledge base, support ticketing, and so on and so forth, sales, CRM, and otherwise. And so those pieces connect to each other. But then we also need a tool for being able to do digital signatures of contracts. So we use HelloSign. And so those end up being outside of the umbrella of these kind of super apps, as they're called. And you're going to start to have to deal with those factors, which is, one, great, because more of these apps, these super apps, are taking over a bunch of little piddly kind of activities that you don't want to have to get 15 apps in order to do this one thing that one of these super apps does. And that means you can have a better understanding of budgeting because you have one fee from one service that's handling those many things, which is what I love about Google Workspace. But then you do have to get some ancillary services based on your particular business and its needs. So it's just kind of getting your head around those ideas, but start looking for these super apps. 17 Hats is one of them, Honeybook. Of course, Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 are the core infrastructure-based productivity suites, and that's something that W3C Web Services, we sell licenses to Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, and so we're fairly familiar with those. And the reality is that we have more of these super apps that are doing these more bespoke pieces. I just wanted to point everybody's attention to that fact that we are starting to see more and more of these come about, and they're really interesting. And I'm curious how the market will kind of take us forward in all of that. There's no answer here, but just to know that these things are coming. Next up is Google has done something really interesting this morning. They have announced that Google Workspace, their typically business, education, and enterprise focused product suite, they are making it available to everybody. I don't really know what that means. This is very new news to me. This article from The Verge kind of covers some of what they're doing in Google Chat, Google Rooms, Google Spaces, and some other pieces, kind of bringing together the concept of Google Workspace for consumers. But the general flavor of what I'm understanding is that Google is giving a lot of the things that we're used to seeing inside of Google Workspace to everyone for free, minus the support and customized domain. Like you're not going to get your name at yourbusinessname.com through Google Workspace in a consumer free account, but you are going to get all of the features so that if you're interacting with people, you'll be able to use a lot of these productivity features in the Google environment. And the idea is to be able to keep work in context. So Google Spaces is a new term for some of you. And in essence, Spaces are, in the Google world, different than Twitter Spaces, which is social audio. Google Spaces is, if you think about it as kind of like a Slack competitor, but also almost like a Discord public group competitor or a Telegram public channel competitor. It allows you to be able to have these spaces where people can collaborate and chat and so on and so forth in an open environment. So Google is really working to bring together all of these productivity pieces into an environment, and a lot of it is happening inside of the application ecosystems you're already comfortable with. So if you're inside of Gmail, then you're going to see a lot of these parts of Google Workspace inside Gmail. If you're inside of, say, Google Meet, you're going to see a lot of those pieces from other parts of the Google ecosystem, like Sheets and Slides and Docs, come into Meet. So we're seeing all of this kind of mixed together so that wherever you are, you're capable of being productive. So good on Google for giving away more for free. It's really interesting to see. And we'll probably deep dive into this in a future Web and Beyond Cast episode. But the idea here is that Google Workspace and Google Chat are now available to everybody. And that doesn't mean you're going to get all the features of Google Workspace. Obviously you'll have to pay for the customized domain and administrative console and those things for business management. But at least on the productivity side, you'll have a lot of those features now available inside of Google Workspace. Next up is, let's see, where am I? Oh, so this was an article, just a random article I found on founders.com. Founders doesn't have an E. And I'll put a link to this in the show notes, but it was 30 expert tips on how to get 10,000 more followers on Instagram. And so they collected 30 expert tips, and all 30 of them are here in this article. I'm not going to go through them, but a lot of these are really interesting and really deep dives into some of the aspects of building an Instagram growth methodology, so a growth strategy. So I just highly recommend checking out the article, reading through it if you are planning on investing in Instagram this year. Spend some time going through this and building out a strategy. And if you end up doing that, let me know what the strategy looks like and how it all looks like for you, because I think it's really important. But a lot of these are really good tips in the 30 expert tips article that I found. Okay, next up is an article about the market share for the content management systems on the web. And so this was actually produced by Yoast. And Yoast is the CEO of Yoast, the SEO plugin for WordPress. And so Yoast, he is the founder. I think his wife is the CEO. I think it's Marieke. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. But so his wife is the CEO of the company, but Yoast runs this blog, and every half year he does a CMS Market Share analysis. So twice a year, he runs through all of the content management systems that W3 Techs puts out and does this analysis. And so for June 2021, he has calculated the percentage of content management systems across the web. And I just find this really fascinating every time I see it. But as you can see here, the dominant content management system on the web is WordPress, of course. They now command 41.7% of the World Wide Web. And so just to think about that in context, that one content management system accounts for the majority of the content that's being published on the web. Not the majority, because they're 41.7%, but you know what I mean. They are, of the content management systems, they are the dominant. I find this fascinating every time, which is that 35.8% don't use a content management system at all. And those are the biggest websites in the world. Think of Google and Yahoo and Verizon and Apple and so on and so forth. They are in essence rolling their own. They're coding from the ground up, and so they are not actually producing their content through a CMS. They're doing that raw. So but at the same time, those are much bigger companies with lots of resources to be able to do that. Most of them are web applications and things of that nature that require them to really do that. But the vast majority of the websites on the world are running on WordPress, which is great news for me because I love WordPress. But I think it's also something for us to keep in mind as it comes to the just realities of how much WordPress is growing and continues to grow as they are building out new features and new items into the platform. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a couple of other things, Joomla and Drupal, which have really long time been, the main competitors to WordPress in the open source or the free open source, free Libre open source software community. And Joomla and Drupal are both waning in popularity. Both have lost market share, and so we will continue to see them probably diminish. They're not for lacking of utility in the world. I think Joomla and Drupal really serve really good purposes, but they are shrinking in popularity. Shopify continues to grow in terms of its size. While it's an e-commerce platform, it is a content management system, and it is growing. It's now at 3.6% of global CMS share. And then Squarespace and Wix, Squarespace has edged up above Wix at 1.7%, and Wix at 1.6%, continues to keep its share, but it hasn't really grown. But Squarespace certainly has grown beyond Wix now, and so we have this remarkable amount of content being produced on the web, and they are centralized among roughly about 5 or 10 major content management systems, WordPress being the largest of them. So when you're making a decision as to whether or not you should choose a content management system, there are many different criteria. But one that I always think about is, where can I get someone who can help support my platform to make sure that I have a platform that is going to be able to be supported by a wide variety of developers and support people and whatnot. And obviously WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix are out there and have a robust ecosystem of people who can support you. So it kind of helps to know that, so that you're basically able to make a better decision as you go forward in those choices. All right, so this leads me to our primary story this week, and I think the most important thing that I've been reading about or hearing about in a long time, which is that WordPress has announced that it is going to be supporting the Google WebP image file format in their upcoming release in July of 2021. So we're just a little bit over a month away from full support coming to the WebP format. So just give it a little understanding here. Google in 2010 released an image format, a file format that they called WebP. WebP is 30% lighter on average than any standard JPEG or PNG, right? Those .jpeg, .jpg, .png files. And these are lossy and lossless image formats that allow you to be able to post things on the web and for web browsers to be able to read them so that they can display images to you. Well, WebP is supported in all major browsers, so that's great. And Google released that format. They open sourced it, so it's an open license for the image format back in 2010. And this is a lossy WebP compression, so it uses predictive coding in a way to encode the image. You can think about this as the way in which video codecs currently work in modern video compression today. And so this is really, really powerful because it creates the same image representation for you in the browser, but just at a smaller size, which means your site loads faster, your website visitors are using less bandwidth, which means they get a better experience. They're spending less money with their carrier to be able to see your website. And that overall creates a better experience for the entire web. So WordPress is going out there and they've decided that they're going to support it fully. They're going to bring it into the platform. And they've even noted that they are going to go to the next step, which is that when you upload a file to WordPress, this is still in the works in terms of decision, but they may then go ahead and convert your image. So you upload a JPEG, you upload a PNG, we'll go ahead and convert that file over into the WebP format, which is the file that people will then download on the front end in their browsers. This will be a dramatic change for the web. As I said before, from the CMS Market Share analysis from Yoast, you have a platform that is 41% of the web. If we can get those WordPress instances upgraded to WordPress 5.8, then 41% of the web becomes that much lighter, 30% lighter with the Google WebP format. So this becomes a much faster web. It becomes a much less weighty bandwidth, on bandwidth for people to download images from WordPress websites. I think this overall is a fantastic, fantastic movement forward for everybody. So I'm really looking forward to the change. And that means for those of you who have WordPress websites, pay attention to the upcoming changes, because if you have any plugins that currently do the translation between JPEG and PNG to WebP, some of you have already installed plugins that do that. Pay attention to this, because now in the future you will not need that potentially if WordPress, the open source project, decides to in essence do that for you natively within the source code inside of the primary source code. And so then you won't need that. If you are not doing that and you get to this point to 5.8 and you upgrade, now all of a sudden you're going to start seeing some changes in the way in which your websites will publish. And that does cause a couple of issues. One is that, for example, if you have any automations associated with your WordPress site, say that you are grabbing an image and then sharing that out onto Twitter and out onto Facebook and Instagram and otherwise, those images that are being displayed are being picked up by your RSS feed or somewhere else, and those are going to now be WebP formats, and those applications may not read the WebP format. So you're going to have to pay attention to those automations, because those automations might break, or not break, but not show images now because they're displaying them in the wrong or different format. So just be very, very mindful that as we make our way through this change, while it will be great for the web, it's potentially going to be really bad for some of these social media automations that are currently running until they get up to speed and start to support the WebP format. And I can only imagine that in the next 6 months, we're going to start to see Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and others start to support the WebP format as well, because of this major change to this one content management system supporting the WebP format, because 41.7% of the world's published data through content management systems is WordPress. So that's those are my thoughts for this week. And for those of you who are not already a member of Web and Beyond community, feel free to join us in Web and Beyond community by going to www.webandbeyond.community. There in the community, we have all kinds of events that we are planning, from virtual roundtables each month to webinars that I do twice monthly on different topics around digital marketing and productivity. Got some really, really fun and great events coming up. So you can register for all of those inside the community. It's free to join, and you can come and commune, learn, share, grow with other small business owners like yourself around marketing and managing on the web. And so with that, we have come to the end of our time together this week. If you've enjoyed the live stream, feel free to hit the thumbs up icon on the video. Thank you for doing that. That really helps us make new small business friends. As well, if you are listening to the podcast afterward, please leave a rating or review in your various apps, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, otherwise. Those really help us to grow our personal, our listening community as well. If you have a question, feel free to leave a comment on the video, or you can tweet or message me at W3 Consulting on Twitter. Join us every Monday, typically here at 11 a.m. Eastern, unless we otherwise note it on the socials regarding another time. Thanks so much for spending this Web and Beyond live with me. I'm Ray Sidney Smith on behalf of W3 Consulting and our subsidiary W3C Web Services. Have a great week ahead, marketing your small business on the Web and Beyond.